Let us pray. Oh God, open us up. Open our eyes that we might see. Open our ears that we might hear. Open our hearts that we might be wild and free. And then, oh God, open our hands that we might serve. Amen. What does home mean to you? Is it a place, a building that you live in? Is it a different sort of place, like the feeling of sitting on grandma's lap, or maybe of having your grandchild sit on yours? Or maybe it's a feeling of safety, of predictability and routine. Maybe it's something a little different. Maybe home is living into your values, being surrounded by those things that are most important to you and being able to go in that direction. And what is it that would drive you away from home? What would cause you to leave home? I love officiating in weddings. I think it is some of the most beautiful moments in ministry. Everybody is so excited and there is so much joy. In part of the planning process, I get to sit down with a couple. I love the Excel spreadsheets they bring out, color-coded and organized the day down to the very last minute. But I especially love hearing the stories. I love talking to the couple. How did you meet? How did you fall in love? Just this week in a wedding that I was working on, I asked the couple how they met, and the soon-to-be bride, she answered with a laugh and said, I would much rather you ask him first because I want to know what he has to say. There was a wedding I did a couple of years ago out in our chapel, and our chapel is so beautiful. It's small and it's intimate, and the wedding was about to begin. I had the groom standing right next to me, and I had, the groomsmen on the side of him, and the women had already come in. They were on the other side of me, the bridesmaids, and I had the congregation stand, and the bride's entrance music started, and we stood there watching those back doors, just waiting for them to open so we could get our first look of the bride. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and the tension was high, and everybody's full attention and wondering. We're right on those doors. And finally, they opened, and there stood the bride, so beautiful, ready to leave her home, ready to leave the wedding plans and the Excel spreadsheets and home and life that they had known behind, to start on this new journey of leaving home. But not all journeys, not all the moments in our lives when we leave home are so planned. It was a normal day for Simon. He wasn't expecting to leave home. He was not expecting anything new. His alarm clock goes off, and he gets up, getting ready for his day, getting dressed, and going and waking his brother up. Hey, it's time to go. We got to go to work. Eating breakfast like a normal day. Wondering about the weather. Looking at the news. And then they headed off, him and his brother, to work. They did not know that morning when they got up that Jesus would be calling them to leave home. Listen now to these words from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1, starting at verse 16. As Jesus passed along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." And immediately they left their nets and followed him. And as he went a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, who were in the boat mending the nets. Immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him. At 15 years old, William Jackson Palmer got his first job in the railroad industry. It was not the only time he would be leaving the comforts of home. When he was 19, he went to England for 6 months to study coal and the railroads. It was a combination completely unheard of in that day. Trains at that time used wood to power the locomotives. Can you imagine at 19 leaving home for 6 months for England? There were no planes that would take him there and back. Can you imagine packing your bags to go so far from home? Making sure their size and weight fit the standards allowed for travel. Can you imagine him wandering around the house, wondering, what did I forget? What did I forget? To get ready for a journey so far from home. When he was 25, he was leaving home in a different way. You see, he was raised and believed very much in pacifism. He was a Quaker pacifist. He did not believe in war, and yet he joined the Civil War. Because, you see, he believed in getting rid of slavery more than he believed in peace. And he was soon promoted all the way up to general. Totally a weird fact that has nothing to do with the sermon at all. But there was at one point in time, he was within 20 miles of Robert E. Lee, the commander of the Confederate Army. And he didn't even know it. When the war was over, he was leaving home again. But this time, he was leaving home to travel out west. And on a trip back, because he went back east sometimes, he met a girl on the train. He met Mary Queen, who would soon become his wife. They were engaged within a month, married the next spring, and then they came out here to build their home, their life, starting the city of Colorado Springs and this church. You know, this church has left home a lot in its 150 years. I know I don't need to say this because it's kind of obvious, but the room we are standing in, the building that we are in today, is not 150 years old. The church 150 years ago began as a Sunday school class in somebody's home on the corner of Cascade and Bijou. The next year, they moved into their first building. A decade after that, they moved into their next building. 20 years later, they moved into yet another building. And 50 years after that, they moved into what is now our sanctuary. That is a lot of moves. And it is so easy to look back and to see those dates and those moves and consider them interesting. And forget that those were real people leaving home. These were real people that had sat in their pew, some of them for their entire life. And now they would be leaving that behind. You can think of the walls. You just look at the walls and think, I painted that wall, or the hymnal with your kids writing in it. They were leaving it all behind, this space where they had worshiped, they had attended concerts. These are real people leaving home full of joy and hope, moving on to bigger things. And yet, there was grief. And yet, there was sadness over losing, over leaving their home. And leaving home does not always include moving on to bigger, better things or following dreams. Sometimes leaving home has been unplanned, unexpected. This church has left home so many times in the last 150 years. It has left those comforts, that safety, that feeling of predictability through world wars, through planes crashing into buildings, through mass shootings, through movements and protests, through pandemics that have brought us to our knees and changed us as a people. It's not very often that pastors can stand in front of congregations and know that everybody sitting in front of them are thinking the same thoughts, praying the same prayers, going through the same things at the same time. But for the last 18 months, all of us have been readjusting to something new. We have been traveling through grief. We are grieving. We are grieving the loss of easy handshakes and simple hugs that didn't come with a sense of fear. We are grieving children laughing and playing without fear of touching one another's hands and getting sick. We are grieving one another, the lives that we used to knew was coming. We knew what our days were. We're grieving all the things that we used to have. So for the next few weeks, I'm going to do a sermon series called Welcome Home. We are going to travel together. We are going to travel together through this leaving home, what it is. Travel through those moments when you're no longer home, that you are just in awe of what you see and the storms you encounter on the journey, and returning home, finding that home is not the same as what it used to be, and neither are we. We're traveling with the disciples, through the disciples' eyes, as they struggle, as they find joy, as they learn so much. Sometimes understanding that the one in their midst is the Messiah, and sometimes totally missing it. It was a normal morning for me. My alarm went off, turned it off, got up, got dressed, got makeup on, ate breakfast, checked the weather and the news. Just a normal day, a normal March day in 2020. I came to work and I remember walking through the sanctuary, and I remember, because that moment will be forever burned in my mind, walking through the sanctuary and Lorenzo saying, "Well, we'll see you in April." And you know what? I did not believe him. I did not believe that the world was about to stop, that everything was about to get shut down. I did not believe the words that he told me. I did not believe that everything was about to change. I did not believe that we would be leaving home.
This table before you is home. All of you are welcome to it. These gifts of bread and juice are sustenance and nourishment for our souls. This is comfort and love from our God for all of you. The last week of Jesus' life, he was preaching and teaching and healing and praying, very busy with ministry, and then got to the last night of his life, and he was eating with friends, many of them his disciples. After dinner, he took the bread, he gave thanks, and he broke it. He said, "This is my body broken for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. When you eat this, remember me. When you eat this, remember who you are when I am with you." Likewise, after supper, he took the cup. He gave thanks and said, "This is my blood poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. This is the cup of the new covenant, filled with love and mercy, blessing and forgiveness. This is the cup of love for you." And so together, we take our bread and our juice, for this is the bread of life for you. And this is the cup of the new covenant for you. Let us pray. Holy God, we offer ourselves to you as we receive these gifts of bread and juice, trusting in you and your faithfulness. May these elements of bread and juice transform us, that we would be for the world your hands and feet, your heart, filled with grace and love and peace. Work through us, O God, for we claim your forgiveness, and we are thankful. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen.